Hello, everyone. I hope that you are having an awesome afternoon, that you're having a great start to your week. I am jumping on here as a follow-up to my post that I put up yesterday in regards to the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. So for those of you all who do not know me, my name is Sherry Wary. I am the CEO and empowerment strategist of Wary Consultations, LLC, where I specialize in equipping young women and youth to be their best selves through personal, professional, and spiritual development. I am the author of 2 books, and I also am a speaker and provide life coaching sessions with working with people one-on-one as well. So yesterday, I put up a post on actually all of my social media platforms in regards to just the sharing of quotes from Martin Luther King Jr. And so, in that post, you can go back to my page to be able to see it, but just in short, I was basically just saying that it's not enough to really quote Martin Luther King, especially since people tend to only quote mostly from the I Have a Dream speech, when Martin Luther King talked about so many other things, and he was very honest, he was very truthful when it came to the inequities and the injustices that were extremely prevalent during that day, particularly towards individuals who were Black or African American, and subsequently he was murdered for it. He was assassinated. And so in my post, I talked about just really how it's not enough to really quote Martin Luther King Jr., but then not fight for the same things that he was murdered for. And so I didn't want to just leave everyone there with saying, just don't put the quote if you're not going to put in the work. And so I wanted to actually come on and provide some tips for organizations and also individuals that you can take in order to start doing the work of ensuring that there's equity and justice and opportunity for every single person, regardless of what their identity, racial or ethnic identity may be. So today I'm actually going to focus on organizations. I'll come on later in the week and maybe do one specifically for individuals. But today I want to provide 5 steps that your organization can take in order to ensure an equitable experience for not only your staff, but also for your clients, your partners, and for the communities in which your organization reside. With providing these steps, of course, you want to take the due diligence to, adapt this as necessary for your particular organization. These tips are just very general. You may need to take additional steps in regards to the work that is needed at your particular organization. But again, these are just something just to be able to get you started with formulating a plan so that you can move forward and do the work of justice and equity for all, especially since as of today here in the United States, we are still fighting for just voting rights for all individuals here in this country, which is also one of the things that Martin Luther King was fighting for before he was assassinated. So just a little irony there as well. So first step is that you want to really take time to evaluate your organizational culture. The truth of the matter is that when you have an organization where staff are not being treated equitably, when certain staff are pointed out because of the fact that they are from a group that is considered a minority in this culture, when you have unequal pay practices, when you have people who are bullied or picked on, while other individuals seem to be able to get away with whatever they want to do, it really boils down to your organizational culture. And so the culture is not just what you think it is, it's really about what other people are saying it is as well. And so you can have an organization where some people are having a really great experience, but other people are actually being tormented as well. And so when it comes to really doing the work of Martin Luther King Jr., doing the work of justice, making sure again that everyone has an equitable experience, and you're going to hear me say equity and not equality. There's a huge difference. When you're just talking about equality, that means that everybody gets the same thing, no matter what their circumstances are, no matter what's going on. If you get 2 things, you're going to get 2 things. The other person does get 2 things. Everybody just gets 2 or whatever you're passing out. And while on the surface, equality can seem like a good thing, equality is actually not enough. You really want to make sure you're equitable, because let's say if you have 2 cookies you're giving out to everyone, right? You have 3 employees. And so employee A, B, and C, your plan is to give them all 2 cookies each. But what if employee A already has 10 cookies and employee B already has 4 cookies, and then employee C has 0 cookies, right? So if you decide to just give everyone 2 cookies, the inequalities and the injustice still exist, because now you're not going to have everyone actually eating and getting the nourishment. I know cookies are not the most nutritious thing, but just roll with me here. It's not really going to have the same impact. Whereas if you took into account the circumstances of what the person already had, and then you distribute whatever it is you're offering based upon that, that's really equity. And so you're going to hear me really talking about ensuring that there is equity. And so with taking an objective look at your organization, you really want to make sure that everyone is having that same experience. And if they're not, you really want to start to take the time to analyze and try to figure out what is going on, what is happening that everyone is not having that same experience. Because you can be a company that has amazing products, but you have a very toxic culture. You can be a company that is doing some very amazing work within a community, but you have a toxic culture, right? You can have an organization where your clients are impacted in such a positive way and go on to achieve just really great goals, and they go on to do really amazing things, but then your staff are not having that same transformative experience as well. It's a culture issue. And so my second recommendation or second step that you can take would be to start evaluating your staff, particularly those who are in management and leadership positions, because a lot of times culture is really driven by staff, management, those who are in a position of power and influence to be able to determine certain policies and other things that are put in place at the organization. And so you want to take an objective look at your staff. One, just because someone is really talented and skilled at performing a particular task does not automatically mean that that's going to make them a great leader. You know, sometimes I know I've seen organizations where individuals are promoted to leadership positions because they performed the job well, but they did not have the leadership skills, the people skills in order to be a great supervisor or a great manager. And so subsequently, you have the staff they supervise who are now in a position where they're not being properly supported because you had someone who was put into the position who didn't have the leadership qualities or the leadership training. And you can certainly train individuals to become good management, but it takes really a invested interest. It takes time to be able to make sure that you don't just have the skill set to perform the job, but you also have the skill set to manage people and to be fair and just and equitable as well. And so with taking the time to really to evaluate your staff and taking that time to evaluate those who are in leadership positions, those who are in management positions, you really want to ensure that staff or that the management are operating in a way that is fair and that is just towards everyone that's on a team. If they are not, then you want to take that time to put specific interventions in place to be able to support them, to get them up to par to the type of work culture that you want to have at your organization. If the staff persons, those people in leadership positions and management, whoever they are, if they're not willing to come on board, then that's where it's necessary to start to make a plan to transition them other way to another position, or even maybe transition them out of the organization completely. Now, let me tell you, as a person who has been in management positions, who has had to do multiple staff transitions, that is not an easy thing to do. And so even though I am providing this recommendation, I'm also very much aware of when there's a process that comes into play when it comes to transitioning employees. And it also is not easy, and there is a lot of weight and responsibility that comes to even dealing with the aftermath of transitioning employees as well, when the organization or the position is no longer a good fit for them. And so making that hard decision is still necessary, because when you keep people on board who are not willing to train, to be supported in being able to move forward in a new direction that the organization needs to go in order to thrive, then it is necessary to then transition someone on. And you never want to have to make that decision, but if you have to make the decision, the worst thing you can do is to not make it, because now that person is going to stay there and continue to unfortunately promote toxicity that's going to affect the organizational culture and then subsequently affect just the quality of the services that you're able to provide as well. Thirdly, you want to get staff feedback. Now, with getting staff feedback, you want to make sure that you are doing this in a way where initially maybe people can become or do it anonymously. If your organization is really small, and even with quote unquote doing it anonymously, you can still find out who said what and who they were talking about. Then you also want to make sure that you take steps to prevent retaliation. It is going to be a horrible situation if you take the time to get the feedback from staff, but then you don't have measures in place in order to prevent retaliation or to even recompense that or to fix that if you see attempts of retaliation actually starting to occur. And then my next recommendation would be to reach out to a DEI. For those of you all who are not familiar with that acronym, DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. You want to reach out to a DEI consultant and bring them onto your organization. Now, here's the thing, depending on your budget, that is going to determine just what you're able to do with this DEI consultant. But what I will say is that don't automatically block it out. Because I know some people, may be in a position where they're looking at the finances and they're like, okay, we can't afford to do this right now. But you really can't afford not to. You can't afford to keep going down a path that you're going down. If you're looking at, again, transitioning your culture into one where employees, staff, clients, partners, everyone can really thrive and be valued as individuals. And so you want to consider hiring a consultant. There are plenty of DEI consultants who are out there, depending on your organizational budget, that can, again, determine just who you will be able to hire. You do not want to try to short sight individuals that you bring on. And this is just a quick sidebar, just with consultants that you're bringing on. I know that there are budgets and everything in place, but please make sure that even with trying to adhere to your budgets, that you also honor the expertise and work that you are seeking from the consultants that you bring on board. And when it comes to DEI, please don't try to short sight, individuals or try to devalue the expertise that they're bringing on board. And so let's say if you have a DEI consultant who is offering, like 10 different service packages that you can utilize for your organization. Okay, you may need all 10, but as opposed to trying to get all 10 at a really, really cheap price that ends up actually being insulting to that DEI consultant, start off with just one service and then build your way up to be able to move towards the other ones as well. And then with working with a DEI consultant, you don't want to just hire them for the sake of being able to put out a post or put on something on your website that, hey, we're working with ABC DEI Consulting, right? You want to make sure that you actually take the time to implement the resources, the information that they provide to you so that you can make the most out of that partnership. If you are truly not in the position to be able to hire a DEI consultant, then another option would be just to search online for reputable resources. You don't want to just pull up just the first thing that you see. You want to make sure that you take the time to look at reviews, to look at the background, the expertise, the training, the educational training that the person has or people have who have created the resource that you want to implement. And so there are plenty of things that you can find here on LinkedIn, on YouTube. For those of you that are watching me on those two platforms, you can find things in other places as well. And so these are just 5 suggestions that I have to be able to move beyond the quotes of Martin Luther King Jr. and to actually do the work that he committed his life to, that he lost his life to, and also just to honor even his wife. His wife was also very instrumental in that work prior to him being murdered and assassinated here, but even continuing that legacy after he was gone. She did just such an amazing job when it came to still being committed to fighting for justice, even in her time of grief and in her time of experiencing one of the greatest injustices that I believe you can ever experience when you have someone take the life of a loved one from you. So that is all that I have for today. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop those in the chat. Only thing that I ask is that you do remain respectful, even as different experiences may be shared. It's okay for us to disagree. It's okay for us not to be on the same page. It's not okay to be condescending or disrespectful towards each other because you don't agree. I also encourage you all to keep an open mind and to step outside of your comfort zone, your places of familiarity in order to expand and to grow, so that, again, we can all work together to ensure an equitable experience, not just at work, but just in life in general, in all areas when it comes to those of us that we interact with, whether it's like I said, at work, at school, in our communities, in the places that we volunteer, the organizations that we're part of. We want to make sure that we're doing our part to ensure that everyone has life, liberty, and justice for all. So take care. Have an amazing day. Have an amazing week. And I will be back sometime this week, later on this week, with a video to talk about steps that you can specifically take as individuals as well. All right. I look forward to talking with y'all soon. Bye.